The rope burned into Abby's wrists as Ruth Sullivan raised the belt again. Blood trickled down her temple, mixing with the snow melting on her cheeks. 6-week-old Sam screamed from the frozen ground, where they'd thrown him wrapped only in a torn flour sack. "This bastard ain't my son's blood," Ruth spat, bringing the leather down across Abby's back. Then hoofbeats, slow, deliberate. A shadow fell across them all. Ruth turned. The stranger didn't speak. He just dismounted, and something in his eyes made her step back. But before we find out what happens next, if you love stories about second chances, quiet heroes, and love that heals the deepest wounds, hit that subscribe button right now. Stay with me until the end of this journey and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Abby and Ethan's story travels across this country. Now let's begin where Mercy rode in on a winter wind. Ethan Cross had been riding for 3 days straight when he heard the scream. Not a woman's scream. A baby's. High-pitched, desperate, the kind that cuts through wind and distance like a knife through butter. His mare's ears swiveled forward. Ethan pulled the reins, stopped in the middle of the narrow trail that wound through the Wyoming foothills. Pine trees pressed close on both sides, heavy with late February snow. Another scream. Then a woman's voice, raw and pleading. "Please, he's just a baby, please." The crack of leather on flesh. Ethan didn't think. His heels touched the mare's sides, and she lurched forward, breaking through a stand of ice-crusted sage. The trail opened into a clearing, and what he saw made something cold and furious settle in his chest. A woman was tied to a fence post, arms wrenched behind her back, rope cutting into the soft skin of her wrists. Her dress was torn at the shoulder, exposing a purple bruise that ran from collarbone to ribcage. Blood matted her dark, auburn hair on one side. Her face. God, her face was swollen on the left eye, nearly shut, lip split, and still bleeding. She was fuller-figured, the kind of woman whose body spoke of health and life before someone had starved it down. Now her dress hung loose at the waist. Her cheeks were hollow, but her eyes green and fierce despite everything locked onto Ethan's the moment he emerged from the trees. At her feet, a baby boy lay on the frozen ground. Wrapped in a filthy flour sack, red-faced, screaming with all the outrage a 6-week-old could muster. 3 people stood around her. 2 men, 1 woman. The older woman held a leather belt arm raised mid-swing. She was maybe 60, gray hair pulled back so tight it stretched her face into something mean. Her dress was good quality wool, her boots barely worn. Money showed in every stitch. The 2 men were younger. One Ethan's age, mid-30s, with the same hard mouth as the woman. The other was barely 20, softer in the face, but his hands were clenched into fists, and there was nothing soft in his stance. "Ruth," the older man said quietly, eyes on Ethan. "We got company." Ruth Sullivan turned. The belt lowered slowly. Her gaze raked over Ethan from hat to boots, taking in the worn leather coat, the Colt revolver on his hip, the rifle still strapped to his saddle. The limp he'd have when he dismounted. "This ain't your business, stranger." Her voice was cultured, educated, made the cruelty somehow worse. "This is a family matter." Ethan dismounted. The limp was there, always was after long rides. Old cavalry injury from a Sioux arrow that had shattered his left knee. He moved slow, deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. "Ma'am." He touched his hat brim, voice quiet. "Seems like the baby's cold." "That baby," Ruth said, spitting the word like poison, "ain't my concern, and it ain't yours." The woman tied to the post made a sound, half sob, half laugh. "He's 6 weeks old. He'll die out here." "Should have thought of that before you spread your legs for whoever you—" "Enough." Ethan's voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. Something in it made all 3 Sullivans go still. He walked forward, bent down, and picked up the baby. Sam stopped crying the moment warm arms lifted him. His little face turned toward Ethan's chest, seeking heat, seeking safety. Ethan held him like something infinitely breakable and infinitely precious. You put that child down, Ruth said, but there was uncertainty in her voice now. Ethan looked at her. Just looked. Let her see whatever was in his eyes. She took a step back. Jeremiah. Ruth's voice sharpened. Thomas, get the baby. Neither man moved. Ethan turned to the woman on the post. What's your name? Abigail Sullivan. Her voice shook. Abby. These your people, Abby. A bitter sound escaped her throat. My dead husband's people. She killed him? The younger man, Thomas, burst out. Worked him to death, and then... Thomas died in a ranch accident, Abby said, and despite everything, her voice was steady. Ask Doc Brennan. Ask anyone who was there. I loved my husband. I grieved my husband. And these people... She spat blood. These people took everything from me the day we buried him. The ranch was Thomas's, Ruth said. The land, the cattle, everything. It goes to family, real family, not some... Say it. Abby's eyes burned. Say what you've been saying for 9 years, that I'm too fat to be loved, too poor to deserve him, too stupid to know my place. You got pregnant awful convenient, Ruth snapped. My son dead not 4 months and here comes a baby. You think we're fools? Ethan settled Sam against his shoulder, one hand supporting the tiny head. The baby's fingers clutched at his collar. When did your husband die? He asked Abby quietly. September 17th, 1877. Her voice cracked. Her voice. I was 6 months pregnant. They can count as well as anyone. She could have been carrying on before. Ethan looked at Ruth. She stopped talking. Ma'am, he said, still quiet, still calm. You seem like an educated woman. You understand how babies work. You understand time. Ruth's jaw worked. The child don't look like Thomas. He's 6 weeks old, Abby whispered. He looks like a baby. Thomas Sullivan, the older brother, finally spoke. You need to walk away, mister. This ain't about right or wrong. This is about property and family name and starving a woman and a baby in the snow. Ethan's voice stayed level. That what family honor looks like in these parts? You don't understand. Thomas's face twisted. The ranch is failing. We got winter feed to buy hands to pay notes coming due. We can't carry dead weight. We can't... So you tie her to a post and beat her? We were trying to make her see sense. Ruth's voice rose cracked. Sign the papers. Give up the claim. Go back east to her people. But she won't. She just won't. Because I got nowhere to go. Abby's voice was raw. My parents died of fever when I was 16. Thomas was all I had. This baby... Her voice broke. This baby is all I got left of him. And they want to throw us both away like we never mattered at all. Silence fell. The wind picked up scattering snow from the pine branches. Sam made a small sound against Ethan's shoulder, already drifting toward sleep in the warmth and safety. Ethan looked at each Sullivan in turn. Ruth with her belt. Thomas with his desperate, defeated face. The youngest one, Jeremiah, Ruth had called him, who couldn't quite meet Ethan's eyes. You go home now, Ethan said quietly. All 3 of you. You don't come back. You don't send lawyers. You don't send the sheriff. You leave this woman and her child alone. Or what? Ruth tried to inject venom into it, but her voice shook. Ethan didn't answer, just looked at her. Ruth took another step back, then another. This ain't over. Yeah. Ethan's voice was soft as snow. It is. He turned his back on them. Heard Thomas suck in a breath that moment when a man decides if he'll draw on another man's back. Ethan waited. His right hand hung loose by his side, ready. The moment passed. Hoofbeats. Retreating. The Sullivans were leaving. Ethan walked to Abby, set Sam carefully in the crook of his left arm, drew his hunting knife with his right. The blade was sharp-honed that morning. He cut through the ropes with 2 quick strokes. Abby's arms fell. She gasped, swayed. Ethan caught her elbow with his knife hand, steadied her. "Easy. You've been tied up a while. Blood needs to come back." She couldn't speak. Just stared at him with those green eyes, disbelief and hope and terror all mixed together. Her hands came up slowly, fingers curled into claws from the ropes. She reached for Sam. Ethan placed the baby in her arms. The sound she made part sob, part prayer, damn near broke something in him. She folded over her son's face, pressed to his dark hair, whole body shaking. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, God. Thank you." "We need to move," Ethan said quietly. "Case they change their minds. Can you ride?" She looked up at him. I don't have anywhere." "You do now. You don't even know me." "Don't need to." He gathered up the rope scraps, coiled them, stuffed them in his saddlebag. Evidence, if it came to that. "You got family friends." She shook her head. Everyone in Clearwater knew Thomas, knew his family. After he died, her voice dropped. "Doors closed. People stopped looking at me. Martha Pruitt at the boarding house. She tried to help at first, but Ruth got to her. Told her things." Ethan nodded slowly. "You lived at the ranch." "Until yesterday. They came with the sheriff. Said I had to sign papers or leave. I wouldn't sign. So they—" She touched her swollen face. "They took me out back. Said I needed to learn. Said if I wouldn't give up claim, they'd make sure everyone knew what kind of woman I was." The cold fury in Ethan's chest grew colder. "Sheriff see any of this?" "Sheriff's Ruth's cousin." Of course he was. Ethan looked at Abby, really looked. Saw the bruises, the exhaustion, the hunger hollowing her cheeks. Saw the way she held Sam like someone might tear him away any second. Saw the shame in how she wouldn't quite meet his eyes, like she believed even a little of what they'd said about her. "You ever been to the Cross Creek Ranch?" She blinked. "North of town, past the old Brennan place. That's mine." Her mouth opened, closed. You're Ethan Cross." He didn't answer, just turned to untie his mare. "I heard about you." Abby's voice was strange now. "Thomas mentioned you once. Said you were cavalry. Said you came back from the Indian Wars and bought the old Mackenzie spread. Said you never come to town, never talk to anyone. Said you're—" She stopped. "Said I'm what?" "Touched. From the war. That's what people say. That you went quiet because of what you saw." Ethan swung into the saddle, adjusted his bad leg, reached down for her. "People say a lot of things." Abby stared at his outstretched hand. "Why are you helping me?" "'Cause no one else is. You don't owe me anything." "No." His hand stayed steady. "I don't." She looked from his face, to his hand, to Sam, sleeping against her chest. Then slowly, carefully, she reached up. Her fingers were cold rope-burned, trembling. Ethan gripped her hand and pulled. She gasped as he lifted her. She was heavier than women he'd pulled onto horses before, her fuller figure making the movement awkward. But he got her up behind him, Sam tucked between them. "Hold on," he said quietly. Her arms came around his waist. He felt her flinch as her bruised ribs pressed against his back. Felt the way she tried to make herself smaller, lighter, less of a burden. "You can lean on me," he said. "I got you." A sob caught in her throat. Her forehead pressed against his shoulder blade, and Ethan turned the mare toward home. The ride took 2 hours. Ethan kept the pace slow. The trail was rough snow hiding the worst ruts. Every time the mare stumbled, he felt Abby tense behind him, arms tightening around Sam. She didn't speak. Neither did he. But he felt her crying. Silent tears that soaked through his coat. Once, she made a sound like she was trying to hold it in, trying not to burden him with grief. "Let it out," he said quietly. "Ain't no one here to judge you." She shook her head against his back. I can't if I start, I won't stop." "Then don't stop." but she did anyway. Went quiet again, breathing hard, fighting for control. She'd probably been fighting for months. The sun was low when they reached Cross Creek Ranch. It wasn't much a small cabin with a good stone chimney, a barn for the mare, and 2 milk cows, a chicken coop, a root cellar. The property ran up against national forest land, surrounded by pines about as isolated as a man could get, without disappearing entirely. Smoke drifted from the chimney. Ethan had banked the fire before leaving 3 days ago, and it was still going. He dismounted first, then reached up for Abby. She hesitated. "I'm heavy," she whispered. "I noticed." She flinched. Didn't say it was a problem. He kept his hands raised, waiting. "Come on, baby needs warmth." That got her moving. She slid down, and he caught her waist, steadied her until her feet found ground. She was soft under his hands, curves that had probably been fuller before hunger had whittled her down. The kind of body that spoke of life, of strength of a woman who'd worked and lived and loved. Ruth Sullivan's words came back to him, too fat to be loved. Ethan's jaw tightened. He'd known women like Ruth. Women who measured worth in sharp bones and sharp words. His own mother had been different, had been soft and round, and had cooked enough food to feed cavalry units, had laughed loud and loved fiercer, had died giving birth to a brother who'd followed her 3 days later. Ethan pushed the memory down, opened the cabin door. Warmth hit them like a blessing. The fire had burned down to embers, but the stone chimney had held heat. The cabin was 1-room cot in the corner table, with 2 chairs, stove washstand row of shelves with dry goods. Simple, clean, enough. Abby stopped just inside the door, stared like she'd walked into a palace. "You can put Sam down here." Ethan cleared the table, spread his bedroll out flat. "Keep him off the cold floor." She laid the baby down so carefully. Sam stirred, made a sleepy sound, settled. His little face was pink now, warming up, alive. Abby stood there looking at him. Her hands hung at her sides, empty now, shaking. "When's the last time you ate?" Ethan asked. "I don't yesterday, maybe." "Sit." She sat. Collapsed more than sat, her legs just giving out. Ethan took off his coat, hung it on the peg by the door. Built the fire back up until flames danced high. Put water on to boil. Found bread, cheese, dried venison. Set it on a plate. Abby stared at the food like it might vanish. "Eat," Ethan said. I can't." "You can. You got to. For Sam." That broke through. Her hand shook as she reached for the bread. The first bite made her eyes close. The second made tears run down her cheeks. Ethan turned away, gave her privacy for grief that looked too much like gratitude. He checked Sam, ran his hands over the tiny body looking for injury. Found none. Just cold and hunger and fear, same as his mama. The baby's eyes opened. Gray-blue, unfocused, searching. Ethan put his finger in Sam's palm, and the tiny fingers closed around it with surprising strength. "You're all right now," he murmured. "Both of you. You're all right." Behind him, Abby made a sound. He turned. She'd eaten half the bread, and was gripping the table like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "I need to," her voice cracked. "I need to nurse him. But I'm not." "You need water first. And rest." Ethan poured hot water into a tin cup, added cold until it was drinkable. Handed it to her. "Drink slow." She obeyed. Drank like she'd been wandering a desert. When the cup was empty, she looked at him with eyes that held too much gratitude, shame, fear, hope. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan picked up Sam, brought him to her. "Because it's right." "That's not an answer." He settled the baby in her arms. "It's the only one I got." She opened her mouth, closed it, then turned away slightly, fumbling with the torn bodice of her dress. "I'll be outside," Ethan said quietly. "You don't have to." "I know." He stepped out into the cold, stood on the porch with his back to the door, watching the sun set through the pines. Behind him, he heard Abby's soft voice murmuring to Sam. Heard the baby make small, hungry sounds. heard her start to cry again quietly, like she didn't want to be heard. Ethan stood there until full dark fell, until the stars came out cold and bright, until the sounds inside went quiet. When he finally went back in, Abby was asleep in his chair. Sam curled against her chest. Her hand cupped the back of the baby's head, protective even in sleep. Her face was still bruised, still swollen, but some of the tension had bled out. Ethan picked up his bedroll from the table, spread it on the floor near the fire, took off his boots, lay down with his coat as a pillow. Across the room, Abby stirred. "Ethan?" He went still. First time she'd said his name. "Yeah. Thank you." Her voice was barely a whisper. "For seeing me. Not what they said. Just me." He stared at the ceiling beams, thought about all the things he could say, all the things he probably should say, settled on truth. "You're easy to see, Abby, once a man looks." Silence. Then her breathing evened out. Sleep took her under. Ethan lay awake long into the night, listening to the fire crackle, listening to Sam's tiny snores, listening to Abby breathe. And somewhere in the dark hours before dawn, he made a decision. He didn't have words for it yet, didn't have a plan, but he knew with the same certainty he'd known when he'd heard that baby scream. He wasn't letting them go, not to Ruth Sullivan, not to hunger, not to the cold, not ever. The Sullivans wanted a war over property and family name, fine. They'd get one, but they wouldn't win it. Morning came with the smell of coffee and wood smoke. Abby woke slowly, confused by warmth. Her body ached everywhere. Ribs, back, wrists, face, but she was warm. The fire crackled nearby. Sam was still tucked against her chest, breathing soft and even. She opened her eyes. Ethan stood at the stove with his back to her, pouring coffee into 2 tin cups. He'd rolled his sleeves up to his elbows despite the cold, and she could see the lean muscle of his forearms, the old scars that marked a man who'd lived hard. His dark hair was longer than was fashionable, touching his collar. He moved with that slight hitch in his step, the limp he didn't try to hide. "You're awake," he said without turning around. "How did you—" "Your breathing changed." He brought her a cup, set it on the small table beside the chair. "Coffee's strong. Didn't know how you take it." "Black's fine." Her voice came out hoarse. "I haven't had real coffee since—" She stopped. "Since Thomas died, and Ruth cut off all the household accounts." Ethan nodded like he understood. Probably did. He went back to the stove, cracked eggs into a pan. The sizzle and smell made Abby's stomach clench with hunger. Sam stirred against her, made a cranky sound. She looked down at him, at his little face scrunched up and reddening, and felt panic rise in her throat. "He's hungry," she whispered. "But I don't know if I have enough, if I can—" "When's the last time you fed him?" "Last night. Before that—" She swallowed. "Before that, maybe 12 hours. They wouldn't let me. Said I had to sign the papers first." Ethan's hand tightened on the panhandle. He didn't speak for a long moment, just stood there with his back rigid. Then he dished eggs onto 2 plates, brought one to her. "Eat. All of it. Then feed him. Your body needs fuel to make milk." She wanted to argue that it didn't work that fast, that she was probably dried up already, but the eggs were right there, golden and perfect, and she was so damn hungry. She ate with one hand while holding Sam with the other, trying not to cry at how good real food tasted. Ethan sat at the table with his own plate. Ate in silence, watching the fire. "I should go," Abby said quietly. "Where?" "I don't know, but I can't stay here. You don't even know me. You don't know what people will say." "Don't care what people say." "You will? When Ruth tells everyone I'm—" She couldn't say it. Couldn't repeat the words. Whore, liar, unfit mother. Let her talk. Ethan took a sip of coffee. "Talk don't hurt me." "It'll hurt your reputation, your business. No one will trade with you if they think you're harboring—" Already don't trade much. He looked at her finally. I keep to myself. Got everything I need here. Don't need the town's approval. Sam started to fuss louder. Abby set down her empty plate, looked at Ethan uncertainly. He stood. I'll be outside. It's freezing. Got work to do anyway. Horses need feeding. He limped to the door, pulled on his coat, and left without another word. Abby sat in the sudden silence, Sam wailing against her chest. She fumbled with her dress still torn, still dirty from yesterday, and got him latched. He sucked desperately angrily, and she felt the letdown like a miracle. There was milk. Not much, but enough. There you go, baby boy, she whispered. Mama's got you. Mama's here. The tears came then. She'd been holding them back since she woke up, but now they poured out. Relief and grief and shame all mixed together until she couldn't tell one from the other. She cried until Sam fell asleep, until her chest ached and her eyes burned, until she heard the door open and Ethan's boots on the wooden floor. He didn't say anything, just set an armful of wood by the fire, stoked the coals, added 2 logs. Then he picked up her empty plate, and his own took them to the washstand. There's a dress, he said quietly, nodding toward a trunk in the corner. Belonged to my mother. She was... He paused. She was built like you. Might fit. Abby stared at him. Your mother's dress. She's been gone 6 years. Ain't no use to her now. Might as well be used to someone. I can't. You can't keep wearing that. He gestured at her torn bodice. Not practical. Practical. Like her body was just a thing that needed covering, not something to be ashamed of. Like wearing his dead mother's dress was just common sense. Ethan. Her voice broke on his name. Why are you being so kind to me? He dried the plates slowly, carefully, hung them on their hooks, turned to face her. My wife died 6 years ago, he said, voice flat factual. Childbirth. Baby came early. She bled and I couldn't... He stopped, started again. I couldn't stop it. Doc couldn't stop it. She died in my arms, begging me to save our son. But he was already gone. Had been gone maybe an hour before she passed, but she wouldn't believe it. Kept asking me to make him cry. The silence in the cabin was enormous. I buried them both under the cottonwood on the North Ridge, Ethan continued, and I made a promise that if I ever saw someone who needed help the way she needed help, his jaw worked. I wouldn't stand by. I wouldn't be helpless again. Abby couldn't breathe. I'm sorry. Don't need sorry. Just need you to understand. You staying here ain't charity. It's... He looked away. It's something I got to do. For me. Not just for you. She held Sam tighter. What was her name? Catherine. Kathy. And the baby. Never named him. Didn't seem right when he never drew breath. Abby looked down at Sam, at his dark hair and tiny fists. Thought about Catherine Cross dying in this cabin, in that bed, begging for miracles that wouldn't come. Thought about Ethan watching it happen, powerless. I'll stay, she whispered, as long as you'll have us. He nodded once. Good. Then he put on his hat and went back outside. Abby sat there for a long time, Sam sleeping in her arms, the dress trunk waiting in the corner. Finally she stood, walked over, lifted the lid. The dress inside was simple, calico, dark blue, with tiny white flowers. The waist was generous, the sleeves long. She held it up against herself. It would fit. Maybe even fit well. She looked toward the door where Ethan had gone. Thought about the man who lived alone with his ghosts, who'd loved a woman enough to bury his heart with her, who'd saved a stranger because 6 years ago he couldn't save the one he loved. We'll be good for him, she whispered to Sam. Won't we? We'll be so good. The baby slept on trusting safe. and Abby started to hope. 3 days passed like a dream. Ethan kept the fire burning, kept food coming. Abby washed the dress wore. It felt almost human again. The bruises on her face faded from purple to yellow-green. Her wrists healed. Sam grew pinker round her, started making sounds that weren't just crying. They developed a rhythm. Ethan woke before dawn, built the fire. Hy went out to tend the animals. Abby woke when Sam woke, fed him, changed him with cloth diapers Ethan had somehow produced. They ate breakfast in silence, eggs, bread, sometimes bacon when Ethan rode to his nearest neighbor for supplies. He never went to town, never brought the town back with him. After breakfast, Ethan worked, chopping wood, mending fences, whatever needed doing. Abby cleaned the cabin, cooked what little she knew how to cook, tried to be useful, tried not to feel like a burden. In the evenings they sat by the fire. Ethan carved things from pine scraps, a rattle for Sam, a spoon to replace a broken one, small, useless, beautiful things. Abby mended his shirts, darned his socks, found ways to be necessary. They didn't talk much, but the silence wasn't empty. It was full of all the things they weren't saying yet. On the fourth morning, Abby woke to find Ethan standing by the window, looking out at something she couldn't see. "What's wrong?" "Rider coming." Her blood went cold. "The Sullivans?" "Don't think so. Just one horse, moving slow." She stood, Sam cradled against her shoulder, and came to the window. Sure enough, a figure on horseback picked its way up the trail toward the cabin. "You should hide," Ethan said quietly. "No." Her voice surprised her with its steadiness. "I'm done hiding." He looked at her. Something shifted in his eyes, respect maybe. "All right, but stay behind me." They waited on the porch. The morning was cold, but clear sun just beginning to burn through the mist. The rider emerged from the tree line, and Abby's breath caught. Martha Pruitt. The boarding house owner was maybe 50, thin as a rail, with graying brown hair tucked under a worn bonnet. She rode a swayback mare that looked as tired as she did. When she saw Abby, her face crumpled. "Oh, thank God," Martha breathed. "Thank God you're alive." She dismounted, started toward Abby, then seemed to remember Ethan. Stopped. Looked between them uncertainly. "Ma'am," Ethan said, voice neutral. "Mr. Cross, Martha twisted her hands together. "I needed to see if—" She looked at Abby. "Ruth told everyone you'd gone east, that you'd signed the papers and taken a stage. But I didn't believe her. I know what she did to you, Abby. I know what they all did." "Why are you here?" Abby's voice was harder than she meant it to be. Martha flinched. "Because I was a coward. Because when you needed help, I shut my door. I listened to Ruth's poison, and I believed some of it. Not all, but some. And Her voice broke. "I'm so ashamed." The tears were real. Abby could see that. But tears didn't undo locked doors. Didn't undo the night she'd knocked on Martha's boarding house with Sam screaming and nowhere to go. And Martha had whispered through the door that she couldn't help that Ruth would ruin her business, that Abby needed to understand. "You turned me away," Abby said quietly. "I did, and I'll regret it until I die." Martha took a shaking breath. "But I came to tell you the town's asking questions. Doc Brennan examined the rope burns on your wrists before Ruth made you leave town. He documented them, sent a telegram to the territorial marshal about possible abuse. The marshal's coming next week." Ethan straightened. "When?" "Tuesday. Maybe Wednesday. Storms coming in might slow him down." "What does Ruth know about this?" "Nothing yet. Doc kept it quiet. But Jeremiah Sullivan was at the Mercantile yesterday asking after you, Abby. Said his mother wanted to make peace. Said they were worried about you." Abby laughed, sharp and bitter. "Worried? That's rich." "They know they went too far," Martha said. "They're scared. If the marshal finds evidence of abuse, if you testify, Ruth could lose everything. The ranch, the reputation, maybe even her freedom. Good, Abby said. Martha's eyes widened. Then slowly she smiled. Good, she repeated. You're right. It's good. She looked at Ethan. Are they safe here? Yes, he said simply. Will you let her testify when the marshal comes? That's her choice, not mine. Martha nodded, looked at Abby one more time. I brought supplies, coffee flour, some dried apples. They're in my saddlebag. I know it doesn't make up for what I did, but... Thank you, Abby said. The words tasted strange. She wasn't ready to forgive, but she could be gracious. Her mama had taught her that much before the fever took her. Martha retrieved the supplies, handed them to Ethan. Then she mounted her mare, looked down at them both. People are talking, you know, about you two, about what it means that she's here. Let them talk, Ethan said. They'll say terrible things. They already did. Didn't make them true. Martha smiled sadly. You're a better man than most, Ethan Cross. She turned the mare. I'll send word when the marshal arrives. She rode away, disappearing into the pines. Abby stood there shaking. Not from cold, from rage. They're scared, she whispered. They beat me, starved me, tried to steal my child, and now they're scared. Ethan set the supplies down. You don't have to testify if you don't want to. I want to. She looked up at him. I want to watch Ruth Sullivan lose everything the way she tried to make me lose everything. Revenge won't heal you. No, but justice might. He studied her face. What do you want, Abby, really? She looked down at Sam, at his perfect little face, thought about all the things she'd wanted once. A husband who loved her. A home that was hers. Children who'd never know hunger. All the simple, impossible things. I want to stop being afraid, she said finally. I want Sam to grow up knowing he's wanted. I want... She stopped. Started again. I want to belong somewhere. To someone. Without earning it every single day. Ethan's hand moved, almost touched her shoulder, then dropped back to his side. You belong here. Long as you want to. But for how long? The question burst out of her. You've been kind, Ethan. Kinder than anyone. But this isn't... We're not... She couldn't say it. Couldn't name the thing they weren't. What do you think we are? He asked quietly. She met his eyes. Gray-blue like winter sky, steady as stone. I don't know. Me neither. He picked up the supplies. But we got time to figure it out. He went inside. Abby stood on the porch with Sam, watching the place where Martha had disappeared. The sun was higher now, burning the mist away. The pines stood dark and tall. Somewhere far off a hawk screamed. Time to figure it out. But how much time did they have before Ruth came back? Before the Sullivans made their next move? Before the whole fragile safety of this cabin came crashing down? Inside, Ethan was building the fire higher, making coffee, moving through his simple routines like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The town knew where she was now. The marshal was coming. The Sullivans were scared and desperate, and Abby was going to have to choose hide forever in this cabin with this quiet man, or step back into the world and fight for the life they'd stolen from her. She looked down at Sam. He blinked up at her, eyes clearer now, focusing more. His little hand grabbed at air, at nothing, at everything. I'll fight, she whispered to him. For you. For us. I'll fight until there's nothing left to fight for. The baby yawned. Didn't care about her promises. Just wanted warmth and milk and safety. Abby could give him that much. Could give him everything a mother should give. And maybe, just maybe, she could give herself permission to want more than survival. Maybe she could want Ethan Cross, not as a savior, not as a debt to be repaid, but as a man who'd seen her broken and hadn't flinched, Who'd given her space to heal? Who looked at her like she was worth looking at? She went inside. Ethan glanced up from the coffee pot, raised an eyebrow. "I'm testifying," she said. "When the marshal comes, I'm telling him everything." Ethan nodded. "I'll be there with you. They'll say things about us, about why I'm here." "I know. It'll hurt you." "I've been hurt worse." She wanted to touch him, wanted to reach across the small space of the cabin and put her hand on his arm, his shoulder, anywhere. Wanted to say, thank you wasn't enough, that she felt something growing in her chest that terrified her, that she didn't know how to be close to someone without losing herself. But Sam chose that moment to spit up on her shoulder, and Ethan laughed. Actually laughed low and rough like he was out of practice, and the moment passed. "Here." He handed her a clean cloth. "Babies are messy. You've noticed. Hard to miss." She cleaned Sam up, changed his diaper, settled him in the basket Ethan had lined with soft flannel. The baby's eyes were already drooping. He fought sleep like it was an enemy, little fists punching at nothing. "Stubborn," Ethan observed. "Like his mama." "Good. Stubborn keeps you alive." Abby sank into the chair by the fire. Everything ached, not from the beating anymore, but from tension, from fear that wouldn't quite let go. "Ethan." "Yeah." "What if the marshal doesn't believe me? What if Ruth has the sheriff lie for her? What if—" "Then we deal with it." "How?" He poured 2 cups of coffee, brought her one, sat in the other chair, looked at her with those steady eyes. "We keep going. We keep Sam fed and warm. We keep the fire burning. We survive. That's all. That's everything." She wanted to argue that it wasn't enough, that survival wasn't living, that she needed more than just keeping the fire burning. But when she looked around the cabin, at the clean dishes on their hooks, at the mended clothes drying by the fire, at Sam sleeping safe in his basket, at Ethan sitting across from her with coffee steaming in the cold air, she realized maybe it was enough. For now. "Tell me about Catherine," she said suddenly. Ethan went very still. "Why?" "Because she lived here. Because she loved you. Because—" Abby swallowed. "Because I'm sleeping in her bed and wearing her dress, and I should know her name without it being a ghost." He stared into his coffee for a long time. So long she thought he wouldn't answer. "She was quiet," he finally said. "Like me. We'd sit for hours without talking, and it was peaceful. She loved to cook. Made bread every morning, even when she was pregnant and could barely stand. Said the smell of it made her feel like her mama was close." His voice didn't crack, but something in his face did. She wanted children, lots of them. Wanted this cabin full of noise and life. When she got pregnant, she cried, happy tears. Said it was the first of many. He paused. But the baby came early. Something was wrong from the start. She knew it. Kept saying she was sorry, like it was her fault. Like she was failing me. "Ethan," Abby whispered. "She died thinking she'd disappointed me. And I—" His hand tightened on the cup. "I never got to tell her she was everything. That I'd give up all the children in the world if she'd just stay." Silence settled. Sam snored softly in his basket. The fire crackled. "You loved her very much," Abby said. "Yeah. Do you still—" He looked at her then. Really looked. "Part of me always will. The part that was 28 and thought love could fix anything. But the rest of me—" He stopped. "The rest of me's been empty a long time." Abby's heart stuttered in her chest. "And now I don't know." He set down his coffee, stood, walked to the door. "I got work to do." He left. Abby sat alone with Sam and the ghosts, and the question she shouldn't have asked. But she didn't regret it, because now she knew. Ethan Cross wasn't saving her to replace his dead wife. He was just a man trying to fill an empty place that had been empty too long. And God help her, she wanted to be the one to fill it. Not because she owed him, not because she had nowhere else to go, But because when he looked at her, she felt seen, felt real, felt like a woman who deserved to be loved, even if she didn't quite believe it yet. Outside, she heard the sound of an axe biting into wood. Steady, rhythmic, the sound of a man working through something too big for words. Abby picked up Sam, held him close, and whispered into his soft hair, "We're going to be all right, baby boy. I promise. We're going to fight and heal and live, and maybe we're going to love again." Sam sighed against her chest, and in the cold light of morning, with the marshal coming, and the Sullivans circling, and the whole uncertain future stretched out before them, Abby chose to believe her own promise. They would be all right. They had to be. Because the alternative, going back to that post, to those ropes, to Ruth Sullivan's belt, and Jeremiah's desperate eyes, and the whole crushing weight of being unwanted, that wasn't survival. That was death. And Abby Sullivan was done dying. The marshal arrived on Tuesday just as Martha had said. Abby saw him coming from the window, a tall man on a black gelding moving steady through the snow that had started falling an hour before dawn. He wore a long coat and a badge that caught what little light filtered through the gray sky. "He's here," she said. Ethan was at the table cleaning his rifle. He'd been cleaning it for an hour, hands moving in careful circles over metal that already gleamed. Not nervous, just ready. "You don't have to do this," he said without looking up. "Yes, I do." He nodded, set the rifle aside, stood. "Then let's do it right." The marshal knocked 3 times, firm and official. Ethan opened the door. "Mr. Cross?" "Marshal?" "I'm Marshal William Cord. I'm here about a report of assault filed by Doc Brennan regarding Mrs. Abigail Sullivan." He looked past Ethan to where Abby stood holding Sam. "Ma'am, you're a hard woman to find." "That was the point," Abby said. Cord stepped inside, bringing cold air and snow with him. He was maybe 45, weathered with sharp eyes that took in everything, the clean cabin, the baby. Abby's fading bruises, Ethan standing between them like a wall. "Doc sent me photographs," Cord said, "of rope burns on your wrists, bruising on your face and ribs. He documented the injuries the day before you disappeared from town." He looked at her. "You want to tell me what happened?" Abby's throat went dry. She'd practiced this, had gone over it in her head 100 times. But now, with this stranger looking at her, waiting for her to reduce her nightmare to words, "My husband Thomas Sullivan died September 17th of last year," she began. Her voice shook but held. "I was 6 months pregnant. His mother Ruth and his brothers Thomas Jr. and Jeremiah came to the ranch the day after the funeral. Told me the property was theirs now, that I had no claim. Did you? I was Thomas's widow. Wyoming territorial law says I inherit a portion of community property." She'd looked it up. Martha had brought her a law book 2 days ago. "But Ruth said the marriage wasn't legitimate because Thomas only married me to spite his family. Said I trapped him by getting pregnant." Cord pulled out a small notebook. "Were you pregnant when you married?" "No, we married when I was 19, had 9 years together before Sam came along." "Sam. Samuel, my son." She looked down at the baby sleeping against her shoulder. "Ruth says he's not Thomas's child. Says I must have been carrying on because the timing was—" She stopped, started again. "Thomas died in September. Sam was born January 28th, 4 months. Ruth says that's too soon." "Is it?" "He came early, 6 weeks early. Doc Brennan can confirm." Her voice hardened. "And even if he hadn't, I was faithful to my husband every day we were married, every single day." Cord wrote something down. "Tell me about the assault." Abby closed her eyes, opened them. "Ruth came to the ranch 2 weeks ago with her sons and Sheriff McKay. Said I had to sign papers giving up my claim to the property or leave. I refused. The sheriff said it was a family matter and left. Then Ruth—" Her breath caught. "She hit me, across the face. Said I needed to learn respect. Said I'd been eating their food and living off their charity long enough. How long had you been living at the ranch after your husband's death? 4 months, until they threw me out. And during those 4 months did they provide for you? Abby's laugh was bitter. They rationed my food, said a widow didn't need much. Ruth watched every bite I ate, said I was getting fat, that Thomas would be ashamed to see me now. When Sam came, she said I couldn't keep him in the house, said his crying disturbed her, made me sleep in the cold room off the kitchen with him. Ethan's jaw tightened. He hadn't known that part. She beat you, Cord said flatly. Yes, when I wouldn't sign the papers. Jeremiah held me down and Ruth used a belt. Then they... Her voice broke. They tied me to a post outside, in the snow, told me I could think about my decision until I came to my senses. They left me there all night with Sam on the ground beside me. He almost... She couldn't finish. Couldn't say the words "he almost died," because then she'd start screaming and never stop. Cord's face was stone. And then Mr. Cross found us. Cord looked at Ethan. You want to tell me your version? Not much to tell, Ethan said quietly. I was riding back from checking traps up north. Heard a baby crying. Found Mrs. Sullivan tied up, beaten, and half frozen. Her son was on the ground beside her. The Sullivan family was still there. I told them to leave. They did. Just like that. Just like that. And Mrs. Sullivan has been staying with you since... Yes. For how long? 8 days now. Cord looked between them. Abby saw the calculation in his eyes. Single man, widow, 8 days alone together. Marshall, she said, voice sharp. Whatever you're thinking, don't. Mr. Cross saved my life. He's given me shelter and asked nothing in return. Nothing. If the town wants to make something dirty out of that, that's their problem, not ours. I'm not the town, ma'am. Cord's voice was mild. I'm just trying to understand the situation. The situation is simple, Ethan said. Ruth Sullivan committed assault and attempted murder. She should answer for it. Attempted murder's a strong charge. She left a woman and baby tied up in a snowstorm overnight. Ethan's voice stayed level, but his eyes burned. What would you call it? Cord was quiet for a long moment. Then he closed his notebook. I'll need you to come to town, Mrs. Sullivan. Give a formal statement. We'll need Doc Brennan to testify about your injuries. And I'll need to interview the Sullivans. When? Tomorrow. Storm's getting worse. We should go before we're snowed in for a week. Fear spiked through Abby's chest. Town. Facing Ruth. Facing all those people who'd shut their doors. I'll go with you, Ethan said. That might not be wise, Mr. Cross. People are already talking. Let them talk. Cord sighed. Look, I believe you, Mrs. Sullivan. I've seen enough beatings to know the real thing when I see it, but Ruth Sullivan's got money and influence. The sheriff's her cousin. Half the town owes her favors. This won't be easy. Nothing about my life's been easy, Abby said. I'll survive. Cord smiled faintly. I believe you will. He put on his hat. I'll come by at first light. We'll ride in together. Bring the baby. People need to see what she was willing to let die. He left. The door closed. Silence rushed in to fill the space. Abby sat down hard in the chair. Her hands were shaking. Sam stirred against her, made a cranky sound. I can't do this, she whispered. Yes, you can. You don't understand. Walking into that town facing all of them? Her voice cracked. They'll tear me apart. They'll say I'm lying, that I deserved it, that I'm just a... Stop. Ethan knelt in front of her chair, put his hands on the armrests bracketing her in. His face was close to hers, gray eyes steady. Listen to me. You're the strongest woman I've ever met. You survived 9 years with a man who didn't love you right. Survived his family trying to break you. Survived being beaten and starved and left to die. You survived all of that. You can survive one day in town. What if they don't believe me? Then we come back here. We keep going. We don't stop living because other people are blind. Ethan. His name came out broken. I'm scared. I know. His hand moved, hesitated, then settled gently on her knee. The touch burned through her skirt. But you're not alone anymore. You got Sam. You got me. And you got the truth. That's got to count for something. She looked down at his hand. Rough, scarred, steady. A working man's hand. A good man's hand. What if they hurt you? She whispered. What if being associated with me ruins you? I'm already ruined. Have been for 6 years. His thumb moved in a small circle, unconscious comfort. But maybe it's time to start building something new, on top of the ruins. Her breath caught. Ethan, we can't. I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. Just telling you, you stay here long as you want. You leave when you're ready. But whatever happens tomorrow, whatever they say, you got a home here. Always. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Why do you care so much? He was quiet for a long moment. His hand stayed on her knee, warm and solid. Because when I found you tied to that post, he said slowly, something in me woke up that's been dead a long time, and He stopped, swallowed. I don't want it to die again. I don't want to go back to being the man who just waits for nothing in an empty cabin. I'm not her, Abby said. I'm not Catherine. I know. I don't want you to be. His eyes met hers. I want you to be you, Abby. The woman who won't sign papers even when they beat her for it. The woman who protects her son like a wolf. The woman who's stubborn and scared and brave all at once. I'm not brave. You're terrified and you're still going to town tomorrow. That's the definition of brave. Sam chose that moment to let out a wail, hungry, always hungry. Ethan stepped back. The moment broke but didn't shatter, just stretched, waiting to be picked up again later. I'll make dinner, he said. Ethan? Yeah? Thank you for seeing me. He looked at her one more time, something fierce and tender in his face. You're easy to see, Abby. Once a man opens his eyes. Then he turned to the stove and started cooking, and Abby sat there with Sam and tried to believe she was worth seeing, worth protecting, worth loving. Tomorrow she'd face the town, face Ruth, face everything. But tonight, she had this cabin, this fire, this man who carved rattles in the evenings and said her name like it meant something. It would have to be enough. It was more than she'd had in years. They left at dawn. The snow had stopped, but the world was white and silent. Ethan saddled his mare and a second horse he'd borrowed from his neighbor. Abby bundled Sam in every piece of cloth she could find, tucked him inside her coat against her chest. Marshal Cord arrived as promised, looked at Abby at the baby bulge under her coat, and nodded approval. Good. Let them see you're a mother. Let them see what was at stake. They rode slow. The trail was treacherous with fresh snow hiding ice underneath. Abby held Sam with both arms, terrified she'd drop him. Ethan rode beside her, close enough to catch her if she fell. He didn't speak, but his presence was steady as the horse beneath her. Town appeared after 2 hours, a scatter of buildings along a frozen creek. The mercantile, the church, the boarding house, the sheriff's office. Maybe 30 structures total. Smoke rose from chimneys. People moved between buildings, bundled against cold. When they rode down the main street, heads turned. Abby felt their eyes like physical things, saw mouths open, hands point, heard the whispers start. There she is, with that cross fellow. Knew she'd end up somewhere like that. Poor thing, nothing she brought it on herself. Abby lifted her chin, met their eyes, dared them to look away first. Most did. Marshal Cord led them to the sheriff's office. Sheriff McKay stood on the porch, arms crossed, face carved from stone. William. Daniel. Heard you were coming. I bet you did. Cord dismounted. We need to talk about an assault case. There's no case, just a family disagreement that got out of hand. That's so. Cord's voice was mild, but his hand rested on his gun belt. Then you won't mind if Mrs. Sullivan gives her statement. McKay's eyes cut to Abby. She's got no standing. She signed papers giving up her claim to the Sullivan property. I did not, Abby said, voice ringing clear in the cold air. I was beaten for refusing to sign. You were there, Daniel. You saw Ruth hit me, and you walked away. McKay's face went red. That's a damn lie. Is it? Cord pulled out a folded paper. Because I got Doc Brennan's medical report right here, dated 2 weeks ago. Documents extensive bruising, rope burns, signs of starvation. He noted in his report that the sheriff was present during the initial altercation and declined to intervene. It was a family matter. Assault's not a family matter. It's a crime. Cord's voice hardened. And if I find out you were complicit, you'll lose that badge. Understand me? McKay's mouth opened, closed. He looked past Cord to where a crowd was gathering. Townspeople drawn by raised voices and scandal. And there, pushing through the crowd, was Ruth Sullivan. She looked smaller somehow, older. Her dress was black, her face pale, but her eyes burned with rage and fear. Marshal Cord, she said, voice shaking, I demand you arrest that woman for theft and defamation. Ma'am, I'm here to investigate an assault. Your assault of Mrs. Sullivan. She's lying. I never. She's a liar and a whore and... Careful, Ethan said softly. He dismounted and stood next to Abby's horse, one hand on her boot. Think real hard about what you say next, Mrs. Sullivan. Ruth's eyes snapped to him. You're the one who took her, who's been hiding her. Probably had his eyes on her before Thomas was even cold in the ground. That's enough, Cord said, but Ruth was beyond caring. She seduced my son, trapped him into marriage, and when he died and we tried to do right by her, tried to help her see reason. You tied her to a post in a snowstorm, Cord interrupted, with her infant son on the frozen ground beside her. That's not helping. That's attempted murder. The crowd went silent. Abby heard gasps, murmurs, saw faces change as they looked at her, really looked, saw the fading bruises on her face. She's exaggerating, Ruth said, but her voice was weaker now. It wasn't we were just trying to make her see. I have photographs, Cord said, of her injuries. I have Doc Brennan's testimony. I have rope with blood on it that I found at your property yesterday. And I have Mrs. Sullivan's testimony. He paused. What I don't have is a good explanation from you. Ruth's face crumpled. She's taking everything. The ranch, the family name, Thomas's legacy. Thomas left her his widow, left her his child. Martha Pruitt's voice cut through the crowd. She pushed forward, face fierce. I saw her the night you threw her out, Ruth. Saw her knocking on doors with a baby in her arms, and no one would help because you'd poisoned the whole town against her. Martha, you don't understand. I understand fine. I understand I was a coward, but I'm done being a coward. Martha looked at Abby. I'll testify. I'll tell the marshal everything I saw, everything you told me you were going to do to her. Ruth went white. You wouldn't. Watch me. More voices now. Other people stepping forward. Doc Brennan, gray-haired and grave. I treated Mrs. Sullivan's injuries, documented them. She was in severe distress. The rope burns were deep. She'd been tied for hours at least. Tom Harris from the Mercantile. Ruth came in 2 days after Thomas's funeral. Said she needed to cut off credit to the Sullivan Ranch because the real family was taking over. Said Abby wasn't to be served. Alice Chen, who ran the laundry. Mrs. Sullivan brought her washing to me for years. Always paid. Always kind. After Thomas died, Ruth spread rumors. Said Abby had been sleeping with half the town. Said the baby couldn't possibly be Thomas's because he was... She stopped. Because he was too good for her. Abby's throat closed. These people who'd shut their doors were now speaking up. Ruth looked around wildly. You're all lying. You're all... Enough. Jeremiah Sullivan pushed through the crowd. He looked haggard, older than his 32 years. "Mama, stop. Just stop." "Jeremiah." "She's telling the truth." His voice was flat. "We beat her. We tied her up. We left her there because you said she'd break. You said she'd sign the papers if she got cold enough. Scared enough." Ruth's face twisted. "You're betraying your family." "I'm telling the truth." Jeremiah looked at Abby. "I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry. I told myself it wasn't that bad, that you'd be fine, that you deserved it for being stubborn. But you didn't. You didn't deserve any of it." Cord's voice was gentle. "You willing to testify to that, Mr. Sullivan?" "Yes." "No." Ruth lunged at him. "You ungrateful—" McKay caught her, held her back. And for the first time, something like shame crossed his face. "William," he said quietly, "I should have stopped it. I knew it was wrong, and I walked away." Cord nodded, pulled out handcuffs. "Mrs. Ruth Sullivan, you're under arrest for assault and attempted murder. You have the right to—" "This isn't over," Ruth screamed as the cuffs clicked shut. "I'll fight this. I'll prove she's lying. I'll—" But Cord was already walking her toward the jail. The crowd parted. Some faces showed satisfaction. Others showed shock. A few showed shame. Abby sat on the horse, Sam quiet against her chest, and felt the world tilt. It was over. Ruth was in handcuffs. People had spoken up. It was over. Ethan's hand squeezed her boot. "You all right?" She looked down at him, saw concern in his eyes, saw pride. "I don't know," she whispered. "Ask me later." He smiled. Just a little. Just enough. "Let's get you inside. You look like you're about to fall over." Martha pushed through the crowd. "Bring her to the boarding house. She needs rest. And food. Real food." "Martha, I can't." "You can and you will." Martha's voice was fierce. "I owe you. Let me start making it right." Ethan helped Abby down. Her legs shook. He caught her elbow, steadied her. "You did it," he murmured. "You fought and you won. We're not done yet. Trial's still coming. But you're still standing. That's what matters." She leaned against him just for a moment. Let herself feel his warmth, his strength. Sam squirmed between them and made a cranky sound. "He's hungry," Abby said. "Then let's get him fed." Ethan looked at Martha. "She needs privacy and quiet." "I have a room, best one in the house." Martha's voice cracked. "Please, let me help." Abby looked at this woman who'd closed her door, who'd chosen safety over courage, who was now choosing differently. "All right," she said softly. "All right." They walked together through the crowd. People reached out, touched Abby's arm, whispered apologies and support. It should have felt good. Should have felt like vindication. But all Abby felt was tired. So tired. She'd won the first battle. But the war wasn't over. Ruth would fight from jail, would hire lawyers, would poison every jury pool she could reach. And even if Abby won, even if she got justice, what then? The ranch was still disputed. The town still whispered. Sam still had no father, no legitimate claim to anything. And Ethan was still a man with ghosts, still half in love with a dead wife, still offering shelter, but not promises. Inside the boarding house, Martha led them to a clean room with a real bed and a fire already burning. Abby sat down and the world swayed. "I got you." Ethan's arms came around her, held her up, held her together. "I'm all right." "No, you're not, but you will be." Sam started crying in earnest now. Abby fumbled with her coat, her dress, trying to get him latched before he woke the whole boarding house. Ethan turned his back. "I'll be right outside." "Ethan?" He stopped at the door. "Stay." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Please, I don't want to be alone." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he closed the door and sat in the chair facing the window, giving her privacy but staying close. And Abby fed her son in the warm room with the good man standing guard and let herself cry. Tears of relief, of exhaustion, of grief for everything she'd lost and everything she might still lose. But underneath it all, hope. Fragile. Terrifying. Real. Hope that maybe, just maybe, she could build a life worth living, and maybe Ethan Cross would be part of it. Sam fell asleep with milk on his chin, and Abby's heart still racing in her chest. She held him close, breathing in his baby smell, trying to ground herself in something real and simple. But her mind kept spinning, kept replaying Ruth's face as the handcuffs closed around her wrists, kept hearing the crowd's whispers. Ethan hadn't moved from the chair, just sat there facing the window, giving her space even though she'd asked him to stay. "You can look now," she said quietly. He turned. His eyes found hers, and something passed between them, understanding maybe. Or recognition that they'd crossed some invisible line and couldn't go back. "You should rest," he said. "I can't. My mind won't stop." "Then talk. Get it out." She laid Sam in the cradle Martha had brought up, covered him with a soft blanket. Then she stood there, arms wrapped around herself, trying to find words big enough for what she felt. "I thought I'd feel different," she finally said. "Seeing Ruth arrested, hearing people speak up, I thought I'd feel vindicated, powerful, something." She shook her head. "But I just feel empty." "That's the shock. It'll pass." "What if it doesn't? What if I spent all this energy fighting and now that it's done, I don't know what comes next?" Ethan stood, walked to her, stopped just close enough that she could feel his warmth, but not close enough to crowd her. "What do you want to come next?" he asked. The question hung between them, weighted with everything they hadn't said. "I don't know," she whispered. "I've never gotten to choose before. Thomas chose me. Ruth chose to throw me out. You chose to save me. But I've never—" Her voice broke. "I've never just gotten to want something and reach for it. So reach now." She looked up at him, gray eyes steady, patient, waiting. His face was rough-hewn, weathered by weather and grief and 6 years of living alone. Not handsome in the conventional way, but real, solid, there. "I want to stop being afraid," she said. "I want Sam to have a home where no one can take him away. I want to wake up and not wonder if today's the day someone hurts me again." She paused, gathered courage. "And I want to know if what I feel when I look at you is real, or just gratitude dressed up as something else." Ethan's breath caught. "What do you feel when you look at me? Safe, seen." Her hands twisted together. "Like maybe I could be enough, just as I am, not thinner or quieter or more agreeable, just me." "You are enough," he said roughly. "Been enough since the day I found you." "But is that love or just—" She couldn't finish, couldn't name her fear. "Just what pity?" His jaw tightened. "You think I'd let you stay in my home, sleep in my bed if all I felt was pity? I don't know what you feel. You barely talk. You do things. You save me and feed me and carve toys for my son, but you never say—" She stopped, started again. "You never say what you want, Ethan. You just wait for me to choose, and I don't know if you even want me to choose you or if you're just being kind." The silence stretched. Sam made a small sound in his sleep. The fire crackled. "I loved Catherine," Ethan said finally. "Loved her the way a young man loves, thinking it'll last forever, thinking love's enough to fix anything. And when she died, I buried that part of me with her. Told myself I was done, that I'd live quiet and alone and that would be enough. And now I look at you and I feel—" He stopped. His hand lifted, hesitated, then settled gently on her cheek. Alive, terrified. Like maybe I get a second chance at something I don't deserve. Her breath shuddered. I'm not her. I know. I don't want you to be. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. I want you, Abby. Not perfect. Not grateful. Just you. Stubborn and scared and brave. The woman who wouldn't break even when they beat her for it. I'm broken in other ways, she whispered. I'm scared of my own shadow sometimes. I don't know how to be close to someone without losing myself. And she swallowed hard. I don't know if I'll ever be ready for everything a wife should be. Then we'll figure it out together, however long it takes. What if it takes forever? Then we got forever. His forehead came to rest against hers. I'm not asking you to be ready today, or tomorrow. I'm just asking you to stay, to let me stand beside you while you heal, to give this, he gestured between them, whatever this is, to give it time to grow into something real. Abby's hands came up pressed against his chest. She could feel his heart beating steady and strong. What if I hurt you? She asked. What if you don't? What if Ruth wins? What if the judge decides then we deal with it. Together. His hands framed her face. Stop waiting for the worst, Abby. Just for once. Just for today. Let yourself believe something good might happen. She wanted to. God, she wanted to. But hope was the most dangerous thing she'd ever held, more fragile than the baby sleeping 3 feet away. I can't promise I'll be what you need, she said. You already are. I can't promise I won't run when it gets hard. Then I'll wait for you to come back. Ethan. His name was half sob, half prayer. He kissed her. Soft and careful, like she was something that might shatter. His lips were warm-chapped from winter air tasting of coffee and hope. Abby froze for one heartbeat, then melted into him. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and he made a sound low in his throat. Surprise and need and relief all mixed together. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers again. Was that too much? He asked. No, not enough. She laughed shakily. I don't know what I'm doing. Neither do I. We'll figure it out. A knock on the door made them both jump apart. Martha's voice came through the wood. Abby Marshall wants to talk to you again. And there's someone else here to see you. Abby and Ethan exchanged glances. Who? Thomas Jr., Thomas Sullivan's oldest brother. Abby went cold. No, I don't want to see him. He says it's important, says it's about the ranch. Ethan's hand found Abby's. You want me to send him away? She wanted to say yes, wanted to hide in this room forever and never face another Sullivan again. But she'd just told Ethan she was brave. Time to prove it. No, I'll see him. She squeezed Ethan's hand. But you stay with me. Wasn't planning on leaving. They went downstairs together. The boarding house parlor was crowded. Marshall Cord, Doc Brennan, Martha hovering nervously, and Thomas Sullivan Jr. standing by the fire, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. Thomas was maybe 38, tall and thin, with his mother's sharp features. He'd never been cruel like Ruth, never kind like Jeremiah. Just absent. Easier to pretend Abby didn't exist than deal with Ruth's wrath. He looked up when Abby entered. Something flickered across his face. Shame, maybe. Abby. Thomas. Awkward silence. Marshall Cord cleared his throat. Mr. Sullivan says he has information relevant to the case. Thomas's jaw worked. I came to... He stopped, started again. I came to tell the truth. About the ranch. About Thomas's will. Abby's heart stuttered. What about it? There was a will. My brother made it when you got pregnant. Left everything to you and the baby. Specific instructions that if anything happened to him, you were to have full ownership. Thomas's voice was flat. Mama burned it. The room exploded. She what? Cord's voice cut through the noise. She burned it. 2 days after the funeral. I saw her. I didn't... Thomas's face twisted. I didn't stop her. I told myself it didn't matter, that family property should stay with family, that you'd be taken care of anyway. But I knew. I knew it was wrong. Why are you telling me this now? Abby's voice shook. Because Jeremiah's right. Because this has gone too far. Because... He looked at her directly for the first time. Because my brother loved you, and he'd be ashamed of what we did. Silence fell. Abby couldn't breathe. A will. Thomas had made a will leaving her everything. Ruth had destroyed evidence. That's a felony, Cord said quietly. Destruction of a legal document. Fraud. This changes everything. I'll testify to it, Thomas said. I'll tell the judge exactly what I saw. When, where, everything. Why? Abby asked. Why now? Why not 2 weeks ago when they were beating me? Thomas flinched. Because I'm a coward. Because I was afraid of Mama, afraid of losing my inheritance, afraid of... He stopped. There's no good reason. I'm sorry. That's all I got. I'm sorry. Sorry. The word everyone kept offering, like it could undo the damage. Like it could give her back the months of hunger and fear and shame. Sorry doesn't help me, Abby said. Sorry doesn't give me back what I lost. No, but maybe this will. Thomas pulled a paper from his coat. I had my lawyer draft this. It's a legal affidavit stating that I witnessed Ruth Sullivan destroy my brother's will, that I heard her threaten you, that I saw the assault. All of it documented, signed, witnessed. He held it out. Abby stared at it like it might bite. Ethan took it, read quickly. His eyes widened. This is if this holds up in court. Ruth won't just lose the assault case. She'll lose everything. The ranch, the money, all of it goes to Abby. As it should have from the start, Thomas said. It was Thomas's wish, and his voice cracked. I should have honored my brother's wish. Abby took the paper from Ethan. Her hands shook as she read. Every detail was there. Dates, times, Ruth's exact words. Thomas's signature at the bottom looked shaky, like signing it had cost him something. This means the ranch is mine, she whispered. Was always yours, Thomas said. We just stole it. The room spun. The ranch, the land Thomas had loved, the home she'd built with him, lost to his family, now returned through the honesty of a man who should have spoken up months ago. I don't forgive you, she said clearly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I don't expect you to. Thomas looked older suddenly, tired. I just expect you to take what's yours, and to raise that baby knowing his father wanted him. Wanted both of you. He turned to leave, stopped at the door. For what it's worth, my brother had terrible taste in most things. But you, he smiled sadly. You were the one good choice he made. Then he was gone. Abby stood holding the paper, trembling. The room was silent, except for Sam's small sounds from upstairs and the crackle of the fire. Well, Marshal Cord said finally, this certainly complicates Ruth's defense. Destroys it more like, Doc Brennan said. She's done. Assault, attempted murder, and now fraud. She'll be lucky if she doesn't hang. Abby felt nothing. Should feel triumph, should feel vindicated, but all she felt was exhausted. The ranch, she said slowly. If it's mine, if Thomas's will said, it's yours, Cord confirmed. This affidavit plus Doc's testimony, plus Jeremiah's cooperation, judge'll rule in your favor. Might take a few weeks to settle the legal details, but the outcome's not in question anymore. So I won. You won. Abby looked at Ethan. His face was carefully neutral, but she could see the question in his eyes. What now? Now that you have a home of your own, now that you don't need my protection. I need air, she said abruptly. She walked out onto the boarding house porch. The afternoon was cold and bright snow glittering under hard sun. The street was quiet, most people inside eating dinner or staying warm. Ethan followed, stood beside her, not touching, just present. You got your life back, he said quietly. Yeah. That's good. Is it? She turned to him. Because now I have to choose. I have a ranch, a home, independence. I could raise Sam there, hire hands, build a life. I don't need... She stopped, started again. I don't need you anymore, not for survival. His face went very still. No, you don't. So if I stay with you now, if I choose your cabin over my own ranch, people will definitely talk. They'll say I'm your kept woman. That Sam and I are a burden you're too kind to shake off. Let them talk. But it matters, Ethan. It matters because Sam needs a legitimate home, needs a father whose name he can carry without shame. And her voice broke. I need to know if what we have is real or just survival instinct dressed up as love. What do you want it to be? I want... She closed her eyes, opened them. I want to marry you. Not because you saved me, not because I owe you, but because when I think about the future, the only version that doesn't terrify me is the one where you're in it. Ethan's breath left him in a rush. Abby. But I need you to want it too. Really want it. Not because you feel responsible or because you need to replace Catherine or because... He kissed her, hard and desperate and real. His hands cupped her face and he kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. When he pulled back, his eyes burned. I want to marry you, he said roughly. Want to make Sam my son. Want to wake up every morning and see your face. Want to teach that boy to ride and hunt and be a good man. Want to build a life that's ours, not Catherine's ghost, not Thomas's memory. Ours. I'm scared. So am I. What if we can't make it work? Then we'll fail together. But at least we'll fail trying. He pressed his forehead to hers. Marry me, Abby. Not because you have to. Because you want to. She thought about the ranch. Her ranch now. The land and cattle and home she could claim. Thought about the independence she'd never had the chance to build something entirely her own. Then, she thought about waking up alone in that big house with just Sam and her ghosts. Thought about Ethan in his cabin, carving useless, beautiful things by the fire waiting for nothing. Thought about how he looked at her like she was worth looking at, like her soft body and sharp tongue and stubborn heart were things to treasure, not tolerate. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. His arms came around her strong and sure. She buried her face in his chest and felt his heart racing against her cheek. When? He asked into her hair. Soon, before I lose my nerve. He laughed. Actually laughed low and rough. Tomorrow? Tomorrow. She pulled back to look at him. But Ethan, I want us to live at the ranch. I want Sam to grow up on his father's land. I want... Whatever you want, he said. Ranch cabin wherever, long as we're together. You'd leave your home? That cabin was never home, just a place I waited to die. His hands framed her face. Your home, Abby. You and Sam. Wherever you are, that's where I belong. She kissed him again, softer this time, sweeter. A promise instead of desperation. Behind them, the boarding house door opened. Martha stood there with Sam in her arms, the baby fussing sleepily. Sorry to interrupt, she said smiling. But this little one wants his mama. Abby took Sam, settled him against her shoulder. Ethan's arm came around them both, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, Abby felt complete. We're getting married, she told Martha. Martha's face lit up. When? Tomorrow. Tomorrow? But we need to, there's so much to, Martha. Abby smiled. All we need is each other and a preacher. Everything else is just decoration. Martha's eyes filled with tears. Your mama would be so proud of you. The way you fought. The way you survived. She'd probably tell me I'm rushing into things. Maybe. But she'd also say that when you find a good man, you hold on tight. Martha looked at Ethan. You take care of her, Ethan Cross. She's stronger than she knows, but she's been hurt enough. I know, Ethan said quietly. And I will, every day, for as long as she'll have me. Forever, Abby said. That's the deal. Forever. Then forever it is. They went back inside. Spent the evening making plans, simple plans for a simple wedding. Martha offered the boarding house parlor. Doc Brennan said he'd stand witness. Marshal Cord said he'd make sure Ruth stayed locked up during the ceremony, no disruptions. Jeremiah appeared at dinner time, hat in hand, looking nervous. Heard you're getting married, he said to Abby. Word travels fast. I'm glad. You deserve. He stopped. Can I see Sam? Just once. Abby tensed. Ethan's hand found hers under the table. Why? She asked. Because he's my nephew. Because I helped hurt his mother, and I need to see that he's all right. That you both are. Abby looked at Ethan. He shrugged slightly. Your choice. 5 minutes, she said. Jeremiah knelt beside the cradle where Sam slept. He stared at the baby with an expression that looked like grief. He looks like Thomas, he whispered. Around the eyes. He does. I'm sorry, Abby, for everything. I let Mama twist me up, convince me you were the enemy, but you never were. You were just trying to survive. And we made that almost impossible. Yes, you did. He stood, looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. I'm leaving. Going west. California, maybe. Can't stay here after everything. But I wanted you to know. That baby's legitimate. Anyone says otherwise, they'll answer to me. Thank you, Abby said quietly. He left. Abby sat there feeling strange. Not forgiveness exactly. But maybe the beginning of letting go. That night, she and Sam slept in Martha's best room. Ethan slept downstairs in the parlor, proper and respectful. But before she went upstairs, he caught her hand. Tomorrow, he said. Tomorrow you become mine and I become yours. Scared? Terrified? Good, me too. He smiled, kissed her knuckles, let her go. Abby climbed the stairs with Sam, tucked them both into the soft bed, and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow she'd marry Ethan Cross. Not for survival. Not for Sam's legitimacy. Not because she had nowhere else to go. But because somewhere between the rope burns and the carved rattles, between the terror and the safety, between the silence and the truth, she'd fallen in love. With a quiet man who chopped wood before dawn. Who carved useless, beautiful things. Who looked at her soft body and stubborn heart and saw something worth fighting for. Tomorrow she'd say yes. And this time, it would be real. Morning came with snow falling soft and steady outside the window. Abby woke to Sam's hungry cries and the realization that today was her wedding day. Her second wedding day. The first had been in this same town 9 years ago. She'd worn a borrowed dress 2 sizes too small, and Thomas had looked at her like he wasn't quite sure what he'd gotten himself into. Ruth had stood in the back of the church, with her mouth pressed into a thin line of disapproval. Today would be different. Martha knocked softly and entered with a tray of coffee and toast. How are you feeling? Terrified. Good sign. Means you care. Martha set the tray down and picked up Sam, cooing at him. This little one's going to have a daddy today. He already had a daddy. I know, but now he gets another one. One who'll be here to see him grow. Martha's voice was gentle. That's not replacing Thomas, Abby. That's giving Sam what Thomas would have wanted for him. Abby nodded, throat tight. She fed Sam while Martha bustled around laying out the dress she'd brought, a simple gray wool, well-made, with a high collar and long sleeves. Nothing fancy, just respectable. It's perfect, Abby said. Belonged to my sister. She'd want you to have it. Martha paused. Ethan's downstairs. Been there since dawn. Looks like he didn't sleep much. Neither did I. Wedding jitters. More like, what if I can't be what he needs? What if I'm too broken? What if... Stop. Martha sat beside her. Listen to me. That man downstairs isn't looking for perfect. He's looking for you. Stubborn, scared, brave you. That's what he wants. That's what he's choosing. How do you know? Because I saw his face when you said yes. He looked like someone had handed him back his life. Martha squeezed her hand. Now get dressed. Preacher's coming at 10. An hour later, Abby stood in front of the small mirror in Martha's room, barely recognizing herself. The dress fit well enough. Martha had pinned her hair up, leaving a few curls loose around her face. The bruises were mostly faded now, just yellow shadows on her cheek and temple. She looked like a woman getting married. Not a widow running, not a victim surviving, just a woman. Sam gurgled from his basket, waving his fists at nothing. Abby picked him up, held him close. You ready for this, baby boy? Ready to have a new papa? Sam grabbed her nose. She laughed despite her nerves. A knock on the door. Abby. Ethan's voice rough and uncertain. Is it bad luck if I see you before? That's only for first weddings, she called back. Come in. The door opened. Ethan stood there in clean clothes, a white shirt, dark vest, his good pants. He'd shaved, cut his hair. Looked almost civilized except for the wild hope in his eyes when he saw her. You're beautiful, he said. I'm ordinary. Not to me. He stepped inside, closed the door, came to stand in front of her. You sure about this? It's not too late to change your mind. Are you trying to talk me out of marrying you? Just making sure you know you got a choice. She shifted Sam to one arm, reached up with her free hand to touch Ethan's face. I know. And I'm choosing you. Every day. Starting today. His eyes closed briefly. When they opened again, they shimmered. I don't deserve you. Good thing it's not about deserving, it's about choosing. He kissed her softly, carefully, mindful of the baby between them. When he pulled back, he was smiling. Let's get married, he said. They went downstairs together. The boarding house parlor was crowded. Martha, Doc Brennan, Marshall Cord, Tom Harris, from the Mercantile, Alice Chen, a handful of other townspeople who'd come to witness. People who'd shut their doors before, but were opening them now. And in the back, unexpectedly, Jeremiah Sullivan. He caught Abby's eye, nodded once. She nodded back. The preacher was old Reverend Walsh, the same man who'd married her and Thomas. He looked at her over his wire spectacles with kind eyes. Ready, my dear? Yes. Ethan took his place beside her. His hand found hers, held tight. Sam fussed in Martha's arms, but quieted when Martha rocked him. Dearly beloved, Reverend Walsh began. The words washed over Abby. She'd heard them before 9 years ago, but they meant something different now. Then she'd been a scared girl, marrying for security. Now she was a woman choosing partnership. Ethan Cross, do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? I do. His voice was steady, sure. And do you, Abigail Sullivan, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? She looked at Ethan, saw the man who'd cut her down from that post, who'd fed her, sheltered her, asked nothing in return, who looked at her soft body and stubborn heart and chose them anyway. I do. Reverend Walsh smiled. By the power vested in me by the territory of Wyoming, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride, Mr. Cross. Ethan cupped her face in both hands and kissed her like they were the only two people in the world. The room erupted in applause. Sam let out a wail. Someone laughed. When they broke apart, Ethan was grinning. actually grinning. "Mrs. Cross," he said. "Mr. Cross." Martha handed Sam to Abby. "He wants his mama, and his new papa." Ethan took the baby carefully, like he was still learning how. Sam stopped crying, blinked up at this man, who now held him, and grabbed Ethan's finger with surprising strength. "Hey there, son," Ethan murmured. "Guess I'm your daddy now." Abby's eyes burned. Son. Ethan had called him son. Just like that, Sam had a father again. The celebration was simple. Martha had made a small cake. People offered congratulations gifts, practical things like flour cloth, a few coins. Tom Harris pulled Abby aside. "I'm sorry," he said gruffly, "for not helping before, for listening to Ruth's poison. You needed people and we failed you." "Yes, you did. But we're trying to make it right now. Whole town's talking about what Ruth did. Nobody thinks you're—" He stopped. "Nobody believes her lies anymore." "Thank you," Abby said, because what else could she say? Their late help had still helped. Their shame didn't undo the past, but maybe it would prevent the future. Jeremiah approached next. He handed Ethan a folded paper. "Deed to the north pasture," he said. "It adjoins the Sullivan Ranch. Was supposed to go to Thomas, but Mama kept it. It's Sam's now, his inheritance." Ethan started to refuse, but Jeremiah held up a hand. "Please. It's the least, it's what's right." He looked at Abby. "Be happy, both of you. Raise that boy good." "We will," Ethan said. Jeremiah left. The party wound down. People drifted away until it was just Ethan, Abby, Sam, and Martha. "You'll stay here tonight?" Martha asked. "I've got the room ready." "No," Abby said. She looked at Ethan. "Let's go home." "The ranch?" "Yes, our ranch." She took a breath. "I want Sam to sleep in his father's house tonight, and I want to start our life. No more waiting." Ethan's eyes darkened with understanding. "You sure?" "I'm sure." They borrowed Tom Harris's wagon, loaded it with their few possessions. The ride to the ranch took an hour. Snow had stopped, but the world was white and quiet. Sam slept bundled between them. Ethan drove with one hand, the other holding Abby's. The ranch appeared through the trees, a sturdy house barn, fenced pastures. Everything covered in snow, peaceful and still. Abby's breath caught. She hadn't seen it since the day they threw her out. "It's yours now," Ethan said softly. "All of it. Ours. It's ours." He helped her down from the wagon. The front door was unlocked. Jeremiah must have arranged it. Inside the house was cold but clean. Someone had stocked the wood box, left food in the larder. Ethan built a fire while Abby walked through the rooms. The main room where she and Thomas had eaten meals in silence. The bedroom where she'd slept alone more often than not. The small room where Sam had been born, where Ruth had called him a bastard 3 hours after his first cry. So many ghosts, but also possibilities. "Abby!" Ethan appeared in the doorway. "You all right?" "Yeah, just remembering." "We can leave if you want. Go back to the cabin." "No." She turned to face him. "This is home. We just need to make it ours." They spent the afternoon doing exactly that. Moved furniture, cleaned, made up the bed with fresh linens Martha had given them. Ethan set up a cradle in the corner of the bedroom for Sam. As evening fell, they sat together by the fire. Sam nursed and dozed against Abby's chest. Ethan carved a small horse from pine, his knife, moving in familiar rhythms. "Tell me about her," Abby said quietly. He looked up, surprised. "Who?" "Catherine." "Tell me about your life with her." "Why?" "Because she was part of you. Because I don't want her to be a ghost we don't mention." Abby shifted Sam slightly. "And because Sam should know he's not the only child you've lost." Ethan's hands stilled on the carving. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then slowly he began. "We met at a dance in Laramie. She was quiet, shy. Didn't talk much, but when she did, it mattered. We courted for 6 months. Her daddy didn't approve, said I was too poor, too damaged from the war. But she chose me anyway. His voice was soft, distant, but not pained, just remembering. We had 4 years together, good years mostly. She made that cabin feel like a home. Cooked, cleaned, sang sometimes when she thought I wasn't listening. When she got pregnant, she was so happy. Made plans, sewed clothes, picked out names. He paused. His thumb rubbed across the wooden horse's neck. Labor started early. Too early. She knew something was wrong. Kept apologizing like it was her fault. The baby. He never cried. Doc said he was gone before he came out. But Catherine, she bled. Bled so much. I held her and His voice cracked. I couldn't stop it. Couldn't fix it. And she died thinking she'd failed me. Abby's tears fell silently. I'm sorry. Me too. For a long time I was just empty. Went through the motions, worked the land, survived. Didn't live, just survived. Until the day I heard Sam crying. He looked at her finally. And something in me woke up. Do you still love her? Part of me always will. The part that was young and thought love could conquer anything. But the rest of me, he set down the carving. The rest of me loves you, loves Sam, loves the life we're building. I'm not her. Thank God. His hand found hers. Catherine was gentle and quiet and sweet. You're fierce and stubborn and sharp. You challenge me. Make me feel things I thought I'd buried. And when I look at you... He stopped. Started again. When I look at you, I see the future, not the past. She kissed him. Long and deep, Sam warm between them, the fire crackling, the snow falling outside. When they broke apart, she rested her forehead against his. Make love to me, she whispered. Abby. I'm ready. I'm scared, but I'm ready. And I want this to be real. All of it. He searched her face. You sure? Yes. He stood, took Sam from her arms, laid the sleeping baby in his cradle. Then he came back to Abby, held out his hand. She took it. He led her to the bedroom. Closed the door softly behind them. And in the warm darkness, with the fire's glow filtering under the door, and Sam's soft breathing beyond it, they came together. Not like her first wedding night, awkward and uncertain and slightly shameful, but like two people choosing each other, slow and careful and real. Ethan touched her like she was precious, kissed every scar, every curve, every soft place she'd been taught to hide. And when he looked at her body, her full breasts, her rounded stomach, her thick thighs, his eyes held only hunger and reverence. You're beautiful, he murmured against her skin. I'm not. You are, every inch. She cried. Couldn't help it. Cried because no one had ever looked at her body like it was something to celebrate instead of tolerate. Cried because Thomas had turned away more often than not. Cried because Ruth's voice was in her head saying, too fat, too much, too unworthy. Ethan kissed her tears away. Hey, we can stop if... No, don't stop. Please don't stop. Then tell me what you need. I need... Her voice broke. I need you to see me, really see me, and not look away. I'm looking. His hands framed her face, and I'm not looking away. Ever. They made love slowly, carefully learning each other. It wasn't perfect. She was nervous, he was patient. There were awkward moments and whispered questions. But it was real. It was theirs. And when they finished, tangled together in the warm bed, Abby felt something she'd never felt before. Whole. I love you, she whispered into the darkness. Ethan's arms tightened around her. Say it again. I love you, Ethan Cross. Stubborn, quiet, impossible you. He laughed softly, kissed her shoulder. I love you too. Have since the day you wouldn't sign those papers, even though they beat you for it. That's when you knew. That's when I knew you were strong enough to survive anything, including me." She turned in his arms to face him. "We're going to be all right, aren't we?" "Yeah, we are. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Sam cried from the other room. Abby started to rise, but Ethan stopped her. "I'll get him." "You sure?" "He's my son now. I should learn." Ethan pulled on his pants, padded into the other room. She heard him murmuring to Sam, heard the baby's cries quiet, heard him singing off-key and rough but sweet some old cavalry song. When he came back, Sam was asleep against his shoulder. "He just wanted to know someone was there," Ethan said. "We're here. Both of us. Always." He laid Sam back in the cradle, climbed back into bed, pulled Abby against his chest. They lay there listening to the fire die down to Sam's tiny snores to the wind outside. "Tell me what happens now," Abby said softly. "We live. We work the ranch. Raise Sam. Maybe have more children if you want them. I want them. Scared of it, but I want them. Then we'll figure it out. Together." He kissed her hair. "We'll have bad days. Days when the ghosts feel heavy. Days when we fight or doubt or struggle. But we'll come back to this. To each other. To the choice we made today. Promise? Promise." She closed her eyes, let exhaustion and contentment and love pull her under. Tomorrow they'd start the real work, running the ranch, dealing with Ruth's trial, building a life. Tomorrow there'd be challenges and doubts, and all the messy reality of marriage. But tonight, wrapped in her husband's arms with her son sleeping peacefully nearby, Abby let herself believe in happy endings. Not the fairy tale kind where everything was perfect, but the real kind, where broken people found each other and chose to build something beautiful from the pieces. Where a woman who'd been tied to a post learned to stand tall again. Where a man who'd buried his heart found it beating in his chest once more. Where a baby born into cruelty grew up wrapped in love. That kind of happy ending. The only kind that mattered. The kind you fought for, bled for, chose every single day. And as sleep took her, Abby smiled. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't just surviving. She was living, and she was loved. And that was everything. The snow continued falling outside, blanketing the ranch in silence. Inside, the fire burned low but steady. Sam dreamed baby dreams. Ethan held his wife like she was the answer to every prayer he'd stopped praying. And Abby Sullivan Cross, widow survivor, fighter, mother-wife, finally came home. Not to a place, but to herself, to safety, to a man who saw her scars and called them beautiful, to a life she'd earned with blood and tears and stubborn, relentless hope. She was home, and she was never leaving again.